Join me as I dive into the horror films that still give me nightmares. Can I handle watching them all in one sitting? There are some horror films that continue to haunt viewers long after the credits roll. They don't just startle you, they burrow into your subconscious, replaying their most terrifying moments when you're at your most vulnerable, alone, in the dark, just before sleep. You know, the ones that stick with you, lingering in the back of your mind, making you question your bravery. These are the films that redefine the boundaries of fear, transforming a simple movie night into an exercise in endurance. They make you check the locks twice and wonder about that strange noise from the other room. For me, these films are more than just a source of entertainment. They're an experience that can leave a lasting impact. They are cinematic landmarks that chart the geography of our deepest anxieties. I've always been fascinated by the way horror films can evoke strong emotions, making us feel fear, anxiety, and even dread. It's a controlled experiment in terror, allowing us to confront the monstrous from the safety of our couch. It's a unique ability that not many other genres possess. Comedy makes us laugh, drama makes us cry, but only horror makes us feel truly, primally unsafe. When done correctly, horror films can be incredibly effective at instilling fear, making us squirm in our seats and jump out of our skin. They manipulate our senses, using sound, shadow, and pacing to create an atmosphere of pure dread. The emotional and psychological effects of horror films are real, and they can be intense. Our fight-or-flight response doesn't distinguish between a real threat and a fictional one on a screen. Our brains are wired to respond to threats, and horror films tap into that primal fear, making us feel like we're in danger. They exploit our evolutionary instincts, turning our own minds against us. Some movies are especially effective at instilling fear, often due to their clever use of suspense, jump scares, and eerie atmospheres. But the true masters of the craft go deeper. The best horror films know how to build tension, slowly ratcheting up the sense of unease until it's almost unbearable. They create a pressure cooker of anxiety, where every creak of a floorboard, every flicker of a light, feels like a prelude to something awful. And then, just when you think it's safe, they hit you with a jump scare or a gruesome image, leaving you shaken. The release is sharp, but the memory of the tension remains. It's a delicate balance between suspense and release, and when done correctly, it's a recipe for a truly terrifying experience. Let's start with a film that didn't just create a monster, but redefined the very structure of cinematic storytelling. I'm talking about Alfred Hitchcock's 1960 masterpiece, Psycho. This film is a masterclass in misdirection. It sets you up to follow one story, then brutally pulls the rug out from under you in that infamous shower scene. The sheer audacity of killing off the protagonist less than halfway through the film is still shocking today. It tells the audience that no one is safe. And the normal rules of cinema don't apply here. The terror of Psycho isn't just in its violence, but in its psychological unraveling of Norman Bates, a monster created by a twisted, suffocating love. The final reveal, paired with that chilling smile, is a moment that burns itself into your memory. From a motel to a hotel, another iconic horror film that still gives me nightmares is The Shining. The Overlook Hotel, with its labyrinthine corridors and eerie, cavernous atmosphere, is the perfect setting for a horror film. It's a character in itself, a malevolent entity with a dark history that seeps into the minds of its inhabitants. The way Stanley Kubrick builds tension, using long, gliding Steadicam shots and unsettling dissonant music, is masterful. He creates a sense of hypnotic dread, pulling you deeper into the hotel's madness. The film's use of isolation and confinement adds to the sense of dread, making the characters and the audience feel trapped, not just by the snow, but by the hotel's oppressive psychological grip. And then, of course, there are the twins. Their calm, dead-eyed delivery of "Come play with us, Danny" is still one of the most unsettling images in horror film history. They represent the hotel's innocent victims, a promise of the fate that awaits the Torrance family. The Exorcist is another film that continues to terrify audiences to this day. It took the concept of demonic possession, something ancient and theological, and dropped it into a modern, relatable suburban home. The story of a young girl possessed by a demon is both disturbing and fascinating, and the film's use of practical effects holds up surprisingly well even today. The film's power lies in its realism. from the medical tests to the psychological evaluations, making the eventual turn to exorcism feel like a desperate last resort. The scene where Reagan's head spins 360 degrees is still one of the most iconic moments in horror film history, a true moment of, I can't believe what I'm seeing, that broke all the rules. But what if the horror isn't in your house, but in your head? A Nightmare on Elm Street introduced a villain who attacked us in our most vulnerable state, sleep. Freddy Krueger wasn't just a killer, he was a boogeyman who turned our dreams into slaughterhouses. The concept is terrifying because sleep is a biological necessity. You can't escape it. The film brilliantly blurs the line between the dream world and reality, making you, the viewer, feel as sleep-deprived and paranoid as the characters. While Freddy attacked the mind, our next film assaults the senses. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre is a film that's often cited as one of the most influential horror films of all time. Its raw, documentary-style approach makes it feel disturbingly real, like you've stumbled upon a genuine snuff film. The relentless, grimy, sun-bleached terror is overwhelming, and the character of Leatherface is still one of the most terrifying villains in horror film history, a hulking, silent force of nature. The Ring updated horror for the technological age and left a lasting impact on viewers. It took a familiar object, the VHS tape, and turned it into a vector for a deadly curse. The image of Samara's corpse, her face twisted in a perpetual scream, is forever seared into my brain. But it's the cursed video itself, a montage of surreal and nightmarish imagery that truly unnerves. And the idea of a cursed videotape that causes the viewer to die in 7 days is both creepy and intriguing. The phone call immediately after watching, with that whispered, 7 days, is a perfect, terrifying punctuation mark. If The Ring made technology scary, Paranormal Activity made our own homes the source of terror. Using a simple found footage concept, the film preys on a universal fear. What happens when we're asleep? The long, static shots of the bedroom at night are agonizing. You find yourself scanning every inch of the frame, desperate to spot something before the characters do. The genius is in its minimalism. A door moving an inch, a sheet being pulled, a shadow flickering. These small events become monumental acts of terror. It makes the supernatural feel frighteningly mundane and possible. Then there's Insidious, which took the haunted house trope and gave it a terrifying new dimension with the concept of the further. It's not the house that's haunted, it's the person. This film is a masterclass in the jump scare. But its true horror lies in its creature design and atmosphere. The lipstick face demon is a genuinely nightmarish creation, and that scene where it suddenly appears behind Josh's head is an all-time great scare. It's a relentless ghost train of a movie that doesn't give you a moment to breathe. The Conjuring, from the same director, is a more recent horror film that's still giving me nightmares. It feels like a classic ghost story, but executed with modern, razor-sharp precision. The film's use of jump scares and a relentlessly creepy atmosphere is incredibly effective. The hide-and-clap game is a perfect example of turning something innocent into an instrument of pure terror. One scene that still haunts me is the infamous basement scene from The Conjuring. The slow build-up, the match lighting up the darkness, and the sudden appearance of Bathsheba. The way the camera captures the fear in the characters' faces, the impeccable sound design, and the sudden appearance of the witch make it a truly terrifying moment. It's a perfectly constructed scare. The film's use of suspense and tension is masterful, making the audience feel like they're experiencing the events of the film firsthand, trapped in that house with the Perron family. And the climax, which involves a dramatic confrontation and an exorcism, is both intense and satisfying, cementing the film as a modern classic of the genre. Shifting gears to a more existential dread, It Follows created a monster for the modern age. The entity is slow, relentless, and can look like anyone, a stranger or a loved one. This simple premise creates an unbearable sense of paranoia. The film forces you to constantly scan the background of every shot, just like the characters. The horror isn't in the jump scare, it's in the waiting. It's the certainty that something is always coming for you, and you can never ever rest. It's a brilliant metaphor for anxiety, mortality, and the consequences that we can't outrun. And finally, a film that feels less like a ghost story and more like a panic attack, Hereditary. This movie is not just scary, it's deeply, profoundly upsetting. It uses family tragedy as a Trojan horse for supernatural horror. The film's terror comes from its suffocating atmosphere of grief and resentment, which is arguably more frightening than any demon. Ari Aster directs with surgical precision, embedding clues and unsettling details in every frame. The horror is inescapable because it's tied to lineage, to family. That one shocking, out-of-nowhere moment in the car is a point of no return, plunging the film and the audience into a spiral of unrelenting dread that doesn't let up until the horrifying final scene. If you're a horror fan, you likely have your own list of films that still give you nightmares, the ones that understood your specific fears and exploited them perfectly. For me, these films are a reminder of the power of horror to evoke strong emotions and create a lasting impact. They prove that a well-told scary story can be as artful and affecting as any other genre. In recap, we've journeyed through some of the most terrifying horror films that still give me nightmares, from the psychological games of Psycho and The Shining to the visceral assaults of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and the modern dread of Hereditary and It Follows. Each of these films has its own unique elements that make them memorable and frightening. They tap into our fears of isolation, the unknown, the loss of control, and the darkness that can lie within our own homes and families. If you have a favorite horror film that still gives you nightmares, be sure to comment below. I'm always looking for the next movie to keep me up at night. And if you want to see more content like this, be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. Thanks for watching, and try to get some sleep tonight.